We start with breaking news in the Trump Organization criminal probe. A top Trump Organization employee has been subpoenaed, a sign the criminal investigation is intensifying and getting closer to Trump's inner circle. New York Times reporting Jeffrey McConney, a senior finance executive of the Trump Organization, has been called to testify before the Manhattan DA's grand jury. NBC News has not yet confirmed this story, but McConney has served as the organization's controller for 35 years. The subpoena news putting even more heat on the Trump org, CFO Allen Weisselberg. Legal experts say this is a sign that the DA is probing deep into the organization's finances. Joining me now is Elie Mystal, justice correspondent for The Nation, Nick Ackerman, former SDNY prosecutor, and Christina Greer, associate professor of political science at Fordham University. Okay, so we're going to start off with this because, look, every single time we hear about new trouble in the Trump Organization, my immediate skepticism is like, is this going to result in anybody getting in trouble? So, Nick, I'll start with you. How is this new place in the investigation? How is McConney being brought in and now being investigated? How's that change what we've known before about investigations into the Trump Organization?
Well, I think this really shows just how widespread this financial investigation is spreading. It's not just Donald Trump. It's not just his tax preparer, Weisselberg. This goes all of the financial dealings of the Trump Organization. So what maybe everyone thought of as a tax investigation really may be more of a widespread investigation into the financial dealings of the Trump Organization, which includes possible money laundering, possible mortgage fraud, possible bank fraud, possible insurance fraud, in addition to any of these tax violations, as well as what we've discussed on this show relating to witness tampering. So what you might be looking at here at the end of the day is the DA actually using the New York State racketeering law to make the Trump Organization basically charging it as a corrupt organization and using various violations to indict not only the organization, but other individuals who are part of that organization. And it seems to me that the way this is spreading, now that they have the comptroller, if they subpoenaed him to the grand jury, it means giving him immunity. In New York State, if you put somebody into a grand jury, they automatically get immunity. So you've really got to wonder where the tentacles are going now and how widespread this investigation is.
Yeah, this is a hydra at this point. I mean, every single look, I don't know anybody who's involved with Trump at this particular point who doesn't seem like they're going to get caught in this web. One of the people, the biggest names that we had before was Mr. Weisselberg, who had been a big part of the Trump Organization. I want to play this sound from a member of his own family. And Elie, I want to get your thoughts on the other side about how much trouble Trump could be in with not just Weisselberg, but now having somebody else come forward who looks like they're going to flip on him.
He started immediately hiding money in escrow, taxes, tax fraud, tax evasion. When Donald says numbers are certain things, and then Allen says numbers are certain things, they're not adding up. Confidentially having them cut checks that would make him vulnerable to tax evasion, tax fraud, compensation, gift taxes.
So, Elie, we're hearing about tax evasion. We're hearing about the information that people may be giving up. What does it mean to have this many people coming forward? And what could McConney add that we maybe didn't know immediately from Weisselberg?
It's exactly what Nick said. We are in Rico Suave land, right? Like, this is the Trump Organization is a criminal enterprise, and that's how this comes down, right? And they are pulling the tentacles of this criminal enterprise and looking for who they can charge. Now, the way that I see this playing out is that it really is going to come down to Weisselberg. I've said this many times before, but the reason why Trump isn't in jail already is because he has always surrounded himself with bootlickers and sycophants who are willing, like Wee-Bey on The Wire, to take all that weight for him. They are willing to go to jail. We have seen people willing to go to jail to protect Donald Trump. And it's going to come down to whether or not Allen Weisselberg is the next person willing to be jailed for Trump. Because when you bring in the chief financial officer, which McConaughey is, what that suggests to me is that this is all going to the CEO, Weisselberg. Like, this is all going at him right now. As you played, they've got his daughter-in-law. They probably got his dog. Like, they are going after this man. And at some point, Weisselberg is they're going to bring this to Weisselberg and say, did you do this? And Weisselberg will have an option. He can say, yep, send me to jail, or nope, my boss told me. We all know that Weisselberg couldn't go to the bathroom without getting a hall pass from Donald Trump, but Weisselberg will have to admit that or be jailed, and that's what we're still waiting to see, because we don't know if Weisselberg is willing to cooperate.
And we know right now, look, I'm sure McConaughey is like, all right. Like, I'm not trying to go to jail for this guy. Somebody is going to come forward and say, I don't really want to participate in this. I don't want to end up in the clink. Dr. Greer, I want to sort of talk about this in a larger political context. So McConaughey first came to the attention of investigators when they were looking into Trump's hush money. What strikes me about this, and I'm curious your perspective as a political scientist, Trump didn't just funnel money sort of through his organization, but some of that money also went out to other people politically. So how far do you think this will go? Do you think that the prosecutors are kind of just narrowing down on the Trump organization now? Or do you think this might end up bleeding into, who knows, the NRA, the Republican Party, other PACs and organizations that may have been dipping their beaks in how this money spread around?
Jason, it's a massive web. And first of all, I wish I had a grape soda to just drink while Ellie was talking. But, you know, the massive web, we've seen Donald Trump do this. We saw him do this when he was president. When he has Mitch McConnell, he wants to make sure Mitch McConnell's an ally. What does he do? He gives his wife a job in the cabinet. So he did this in New York. He makes sure that he infiltrates your entire life and your entire family. So this is why we see people who are either in jail, going to jail, or trying to stay out of going to jail. Who have all surrounded Donald Trump. What makes it so interesting in the New York context is we have a Democratic primary on June 22nd for the DA of Manhattan. So this is a Cy Vance operation for now, but this is also a conversation that's been somewhat on the back burner for many of the candidates. It's right now 8 primary candidates, and there are some other satellites, I think, there, but we're focusing on 8 candidates for the most part. And, you know, they've made Donald Trump and this criminal enterprise a part of their campaigning, but a lot of it's been about policing and what we'll do in the city of New York. But this will obviously bump up that conversation in a real substantive way in the next few weeks, because we know, as you've said, it's insidious. We can look at institutions and organizations and family members, as Ellie mentioned, who are all wrapped up in, and it's not just from 2016 to the present. This is something that Donald Trump has done his entire career, when he worked for his daddy, when he had his own companies, and well before he became the president of the United States. And it's crazy to think that the president of the United States has operated in such a manner where, you know, he would make the Corleone family blush because of the way he has just has absolutely no respect for the law. And he has never believed that the law applies to him. And so he's been able to circumvent it in different ways, either sue people or threaten to sue people, or quite honestly, just lie to get out of his misdoings, because, as Ellie has mentioned, he's had sycophants who've always been willing to carry the water for him.
So if McConaughey is ghost and the Trump organization is truth, where they've kind of been running some of this money, I want to ask you a political question that comes from this, Dr. Greer. What impact might this have? You talked about the district attorney races coming up. What impact might this new investigation and information have on the mayor's race in New York? Or is that something that, you know, the mayoral candidates don't really care about one way or another? I can't imagine that this is something that goes over everybody's head, given that this could bring a lot of heat to the city.
It does. The mayor's race right now, I mean, we have 8 major candidates and we have several others who will be on the ballot. It's ranked choice on June 22nd. It will be somewhat confusing. We most likely won't know who the 110th mayor of New York City will be for some weeks. But it does matter because the mayor does have to work with the Manhattan DA and also 4 other DAs from the 4 other boroughs. And Donald Trump still looms large, whether he lives in New York City or not. And so some of these organizations and institutions, some of them have received money from the city, not just the federal government. And so if they're being investigated, then that does bring up a question for the mayor of New York, the next mayor of New York City. And should these organizations be brought to justice? Should they continue to receive funding? And what does that mean?
Nick, you mentioned before that McConney is he's getting immunity for this. And I got to read through this because this is really key. So he's getting immunity for his testimony, can't exercise his Fifth Amendment rights. He's going to have to go out there and tell everything and tell the truth. Is immunity really that valuable at this point to other people who might be brought in? Because, yes, they may say, all right, look, you're going to give me immunity. I'm not immediately going to go to jail. But there could be other financial consequences to them acknowledging and admitting that they were part of this overall scam. So, is this still a carrot that people want, or is the carrot kind of wilted?
Well, no, I think it's a carrot that people are definitely going to want. I mean, this gets them off from any kind of criminal prosecution. It means that they cannot be prosecuted for whatever it was, whether it was money laundering, whether it's, assisting in the preparation of a false return, whether it's tax evasion or bank fraud or insurance fraud. It gets them off the hook. This is transactional immunity. It's not what they have in the federal system, which is use immunity, which simply means that what you say can't be used against you. This gives them the whole enchilada in terms of where they are, in terms of the crimes. However, it does not immunize them against civil penalties. So what they admit to, and what they admit to and what they say could wind up at the end of the day costing them a lot of money if it turns out they were party to a scheme that essentially built the government and defrauded the government out of its ability to collect taxes, or were involved in money laundering or in other activities that would warrant a civil financial penalty. Right. So it doesn't get you off the hook, but believe me, not having to spend a day in Rikers Island is worth the immunity.